So you're here in New York for Climate Week to talk about carbon capture and storage technology that you've taken an interest in. Tell me about how it helps to solve the climate problem.
So the technology that I'm interested in, and the reason I've come to New York, is a technology developed by the Jupiter Oxygen Corporation for carbon capture, utilization, and storage. This is a technology that takes carbon pollution, CO2, and turns it into a valued commodity. In particular, this is important for developing countries where the re-injection of CO2 along with nitrogen taken out of the air can produce large supplies of domestic natural gas, a clean burning fuel that can substitute for additional coal consumption.
So, I mean, you describe it as a clean burning fuel, but natural gas is still a fossil fuel. Isn't this just perpetuating reliance on fossil fuels?
It is recognizing that although there are many countries that have ambitious targets for introducing renewable energy, which is very important. In the next 25 years, developing countries will still rely primarily on fossil fuels. This is an attempt to make that activity, burning fossil fuels in both developing countries and industrial countries, a source of innovation that will support the development of renewables and reduce air pollution, particularly local air pollutants, as well as CO2.
And carbon capture and storage has really struggled to take off, largely because of the economics of it. It requires pretty high cost inputs to start with. How is this technology different?
Well, you're exactly right. Conventional carbon capture and storage, CCS technology, is extraordinarily expensive and not commercially viable. What's different here is the process that allows utilization of the CO2, converting the carbon pollution into a valued commodity that can be sold and used in a number of applications.
And you talk about developing countries relying on fossil fuels for years to come, but I mean, isn't the sort of ultimate goal to leapfrog the sort of fossil fuel development path that Western countries have taken and get on a cleaner track from the outset?
Yes, indeed. And for example, in India, the Prime Minister has a very ambitious program to introduce 100 gigawatts of renewable electricity in India. However, during the same period, the Indian National Energy Strategy envisions doubling India's coal use in order to fuel the industrial development that will support those 100 gigawatts of renewables. This technology allows that transition to be made in a way that addresses the intermittent characteristic of solar energy by producing domestic supplies of natural gas that can be burned in fast-reacting turbines that fill in the gaps when the sun isn't shining or the wind isn't blowing.
And what stage is this technology at? How ready is it for action?
So this technology has been proven technically feasible in an engineering sense, and a large pilot facility is operating in the United States. It's now moving to the stage of commercial demonstration, and a commercial demonstration project is in the process of being developed both in India and in China, which also has an aggressive renewables development program, but anticipates an increase in its domestic use of coal. This slows the growth in coal use and substitutes for the dirtiest, most high-ash coal, a clean-burning fossil fuel, natural gas. In addition, using a technique called oxycombustion at the initial coal power plant, this technology substantially reduces the emissions of oxides of nitrogen, NOx, which are an important component of urban air pollution, both in India and in China and in the United States. The use of carbon capture, utilization, and storage with oxycombustion allows countries like India and China to exploit domestic resources, avoid high cost investments in liquefied natural gas, and indeed to reduce their contribution of CO2 to global climate change.